Hi guys, and welcome to CARtastrophies. Thanks for joining us. Today I thought I'd start out with a statistic. So on average, Americans spend about 12 and a half days driving each year. So basically this means we spend a lot of time in our cars. And I'm sure that everyone can think of at least one car-related incident that they've experienced, even our fearless leader, Professor Collette. So today we're going to share a collection of stories that include crashes, tickets, and car malfunctions. So feel free to laugh and enjoy listening.
Hi, I'm Carl.
Hi, Carl.
So my story starts off, I was 16 years old and I was on my first overnight hunting trip without my dad. It was me, my brother, and our friend, and we're in my dad's truck, which made me even more nervous about crashing. It was 19 degrees out and lightly snowing with icy roads. I'm not really sure why, but we decided to drive up a mountain on back roads on a road that was supposed to be closed for winter. We got about 10 miles up the mountain when we hit a patch of black ice. I lost control of the steering and the truck started sliding towards the edge of a cliff. We kept sliding until the truck was practically hanging off the edge. We all froze for a second, speechless and in shock. It was so close to the edge we were worried about getting out and shifting the balance of the truck. We made it out of the truck and we were assessing the situation and we realized it was getting dark. We had no cell service, the snow was coming down harder and nobody knew exactly where we were.
Were you guys able to back the truck out?
No. It was so icy and close to the edge we couldn't even back it out because we were worried it'd slip and fall off. We knew the closest house was an old cabin at the bottom of the mountain. We decided we'd hike throughout the night until we found someone with cell service. After jogging down the mountain for about 2 miles, I had 1 bar of service on my phone and we decided to call 911. The call didn't go through. We kept on hiking for a couple more miles in the pitch black until finally we had service. We called every tow truck company in town and nobody was willing to come tow us out. Finally, some random guy in town said he'd come tow us out. By the time we hiked back to the truck and were able to get towed out, it was 2 a.m. Still never told the story to my dad, so yeah.
Hey, I'm Cameron.
Hi, Cameron.
Hello, and this is my car story. So it was last summer, and I was leaving for Gonzaga in a week. I got up on a Tuesday morning for my last 8 a.m. shift.
Where did you work at?
I worked at a golf course / restaurant. It was called Harbor Point Golf and Restaurant.
And what was your job?
I worked as a waitress in the restaurant, and I also worked in like the snack bar area where I gave like hot dogs and sodas and stuff to old guys in between their golf rounds. So I left from my house at like 7:30 in the morning, and I stopped at my favorite coffee shop. It was called The Grounds. And I pulled into the drive-thru and there was no one behind me, so I just parked. And I knew that I had gotten the slow barista, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna be here for a few minutes because I always order the same thing and it always takes her like 10 minutes to make one drink. But like I said, there was no line behind me, so I just parked and I was on my phone waiting. So I ordered my coffee and I was waiting for a few minutes. I paid and then I put my car in drive to leave to go to work. And then I pressed down on the gas and my car just sounded like it was in neutral. The engine revved and it was not going forward and I didn't know what to do. So I shifted into reverse and same thing, just sounded like it was in neutral. So I turned it off and on again and it just wouldn't move. And so I was getting super stressed out.
Why were you stressed out?
Because I could tell that like the barista was nervous because my car was blocking the entire drive-thru and like no one else could get in line and like I was gonna be her only customer of the day if my car didn't move. I was going to be late for work. And so I ended up having to get the barista to come out of the stand and help me push my car into a parking spot. And then I had to walk to work.
Hi, I'm Catherine.
Hi, Catherine.
So my car story starts with me and my family driving to Butte, Montana, which isn't that great a place in Montana, for my first ever swim meet, and I was in 5th grade at the time. So my brother and I had to go to school, so we got a pretty late start to the drive, and the snow was coming down pretty hard because it was late November-ish. So about 2 hours later, we were driving through the Bozeman Pass, and I was watching Kicking and Screaming on the DVD player. So we had just gone over a bridge, and then we hit a patch of black ice, so we had lost control of the car. And then I remember right when we started to spin, I closed my eyes, and then the rest of my family started yelling. So we hit the guardrail facing oncoming traffic, and then our lights went out, and since it was late, no cars could see us. So my dad kind of had to figure out something to do, so he ended up backing us into this previously made dent in the rail while all the cars were still passing. So luckily, the police and the ambulance showed up about 10 minutes later and got us out of the car.
Wow, was anyone injured?
Luckily, we'd all been wearing our seatbelts, so no one was hurt. We came out with like just a few bruises and scratches. I had hurt my shoulder just a bit, but nothing too serious. So then that night, we made it to Bozeman, and we stayed in a hotel there. And the next day, we woke up, and we had seen in the paper that there had been 8 accidents on the interstate that night, and then our car was also totaled, which was kind of a bummer. Because of this accident, I was very cautious in high school when I was driving on icy roads, and I always offered to drive for my friends when the roads were bad.
Hi, my name's Kate.
Hi, Kate.
So my story was my sophomore year of high school. I was 16 years old, and I had only had my license for about 3 or 4 months. I didn't drive much because I didn't have my own car. So this weekend, both my parents were out of town.
Where were your parents at?
My dad was hunting in Idaho for a week, and my mom was about 6 or 7 hours away in Southern California for a wedding. So I was able to have the car that weekend, and my mom rented a car to go down to SoCal. So I was in charge of me and my brother and had to kind of drive us everywhere. And I was volunteering for an art show for my teacher downtown, and I drove and I went into the parking garage, but I took over the curb, so it wasn't like short, and I drove. I completely drove over it, and there was this really loud sound, and my car was making a lot of noises. So when I parked, I looked at the car, but I didn't see anything wrong with it. So I went volunteering, and then I got back in my car and was driving home. And when I was stopped at a stoplight, this guy knocked on my window and was yelling that I had a flat tire. So I pulled over and I called my friend to ask her what I was supposed to do.
Why'd you call your friend instead of your mom?
I called my mom after I called my friend, and she was useless. She told me she didn't want me to call a tow truck because she didn't want me to be by myself with some random person. And then she hung up because the wedding was about to start. So I called my friend again and kind of explained that I literally had no idea what to do. And her brother came and changed my tire for me. So then I couldn't drive the car for the rest of the weekend because you can't go above 50 miles per hour because the tire that was changed to was so much smaller. And then after this incident and one more where I drove over the curb with my mom in the car, we realized that I couldn't see the hood of the car, and I didn't know you were supposed to. And so now I have to sit on a cushion when I drive.
Hi, Caitlin.
So at the end of my senior year, I was opening at work at 4 a.m. on a weekend, and since I only live 5 minutes away, I was driving home on my break. My shift started before the sun even rose, so I was blasting music from my Ford so I can stay awake. I was driving down a hill, and I could see at the top of my hill in my rearview mirror. I wanted to switch lanes to the right, so I followed the look, signal, shoulder, go principle. And when I looked over my shoulder, I noticed a motorcycle and a white car were just starting to accelerate behind me because the light at the top of the hill just turned green. And since they were still so far behind me when I looked, I switched lanes to the right of me. I didn't notice that the motorcycle was accelerating so much faster than the white car, and I ended up cutting him off. The next thing I knew, I heard someone yelling on a megaphone to pull over into the next neighborhood, and I looked into my window and I finally noticed the flashing red and green lights behind me. I didn't hear them at first because all I could hear was my music. So I frantically stopped at the neighborhood, and I was wondering why I was pulled over. And when the cop approached me, he was yelling at me for cutting him off in his motorcycle, talking to me like I did it on purpose, and gave me a lane violation ticket. And all I kept saying was, "I'm sorry," because I didn't know how to reply to him. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I noticed that he wasn't just a regular cop, it was the sheriff. And on top of that, I also got a ticket for an illegal tint on my window in the passenger window. And he said, "The windows are so dark, maybe that's why you didn't see me."
Boom. Roasted.
The thing is that my front 2 windows only had factory tint, so they weren't actually illegal. But I wasn't going to argue with the sheriff, so I just accepted the ticket. So I learned to not cut off a sheriff and to be more cautious when driving and to always check.
Hi, my name is Tiffany.
Hi, Tiffany.
So this is my car story. It was junior year of high school around lunchtime, and I had been craving Starbucks all day. So I decided to call my friend to see if he wanted to go, and so he said yes, and he was the driver. We took his car to the Starbucks that was 3 minutes away from my high school, and it was located near a really busy intersection. I remember while driving to the Starbucks, I had the feeling of being like super cool and superior because we had the freedom to go off campus during lunch where the underclassmen had to stay at the school and eat in the school cafeteria. Anyways, we got to the Starbucks and we ordered our drinks and we got back into the car. And I remember he had turned the car on and he started pulling out. And I had this kind of feeling of uncertainty because the exit that we were taking didn't look like it was a correct exit we should be taking. And it turned out to be a right-only exit. And he was trying to take an illegal left. And so before we knew it, a landscaping truck came around the corner and it was going about 40 miles per hour. And the metal crate of the back of the truck pretty much hooked the front of his hood and it tore the entire hood off.
Oh my gosh, was anyone injured?
Thankfully, no one was injured, but we did end up being ticketed. I remember like crying and feeling super bad and telling him it was all my fault because I just wanted Starbucks. But we were really thankful that no one got injured.
What happened to your friend's car after the accident?
His car was completely totaled and he had to get a new one. We actually ended up going back to school after the crash just because we thought that we were okay. But we pretty much learned that day that we should be super aware of like where we're driving and especially like different exits that we're taking. And we were just really grateful that we made it out with no scratches or bruises.
17.5 million cars are sold every year, and this number will continue to increase in years to come. Cars are a privilege for human beings and will continue to be used in the near future. Our collection of stories about tickets, crashes, and car malfunctions should encourage us to be more aware while driving. We all use cars as a convenience to get us from point A to point B. However, we should recognize the responsibility that comes with this. Our vehicles give us the ability to go whenever and wherever we want at any time. This means we should take precautions while driving for ourselves and, more importantly, for others.